Welcome back to Bi-Monthly Bull. I'm your host Lewis Spears, and even though I have over 160,000 subscribers on YouTube and more than 100,000 likes on Facebook, I only have 16,000 followers on Instagram, which must mean on one hand I'm quite funny, but on the other hand I'm also incredibly unattractive. So while the intro plays, please follow me on Instagram because I've got really low self-esteem. In our first story tonight, New York vets, not to be confused with the New York Mets, a baseball team. I'm sorry, that's the dumbest joke I've ever written in my life. Give me a second to get over my own brilliance. New York vets are saying that hipsters in Brooklyn are refusing to vaccinate their dogs because they're worried it could give them doggy autism. Unfortunately for the animal kingdom, veterinary medicine is greatly influenced by trends in human medicine. For example, when human acupuncture became really popular with rich white people, 2 years later, animal acupuncture became popular. I'm sorry, but that is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. Why would you put needles in a dog? If you want an animal that looks like that, don't put needles in a fucking poodle. Just go and get yourself a porcupine. Now that the anti-vaccine movement is popular among humans, vets in Brooklyn are saying that more and more people are applying their fear of human vaccines causing autism to animal vaccines causing autism in dogs, which doesn't make any sense. That's like you applying your fear of chocolate killing dogs to humans. Besides, trained vets are saying that doesn't make any sense at all, because even if human vaccines did cause autism, which they fucking don't, animal vaccines protect against completely different diseases in a completely different species, so they have completely different chemicals in them, and none of those chemicals cause autism either. And most behavioral animal scientists say that we don't think animals can get autism. That's a human-specific behavioral disorder. But if dogs could get autism, we're also pretty sure that humans wouldn't be able to tell because we're not fucking dogs. In quieter news now, Donald Trump recently announced on Twitter that he'll be banning all transgender people from serving in the US military. This has caused the biggest left-wing headfuck since Caitlyn Jenner came out as conservative. Local annoying hipster Timothy Fakadani had this to say. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally for trans rights and I'm against exclusion, so I think the ban is a bad idea, but I'm also against anybody joining the army, so I think the ban is a good idea. Oh no, now I'm stuck in a logic loop. I think I'm gonna kill myself. Great idea, Timothy. Now, as to be expected, a lot of everyday, regular American citizens were angry about Trump's transgender ban. However, a surprising objection to the ban came from ISIS themselves. A representative from ISIS spoke to our top reporter in the Middle East and had this to say.
أيها المسلمون إن بلوغ رمضان نعمة عظيمة وفضل كبير من الله تعالى شهر أوله رحمة.
Over to Australian news now, and a local Sydney man is making headlines after implanting a public transport ticket into his own arm so he no longer has to carry it in his wallet. He's being hailed by the press and the public as some kind of futurist. Really? That's what we consider progress now? Implanting a foreign object owned by a company that isn't you into your own body is considered progress now. I mean, fuck. Thank God I was born before the government starts putting GPS trackers into baby foreheads. Anyway, I'm not fooled at all. How come when this guy implants a fucking train ticket into his arm, he gets called a pioneer and a futurist? But when I put a lifetime Disney World pass into my own ball sack and then use it to get into Thunder Mountain while standing in line with 100 kids, I get put on a sex offenders list. Now it's time for a new segment that I like to call, What the Fuck Are Hipster Cafes Doing Now? This one happens in Melbourne because of course it does. Recently, a cafe in Melbourne has started charging its male customers 18% more than the female customers to combat the wage gap.
We have an 18% premium for men, which is the same amount as the gender pay gap.
This story has been blowing up online everywhere. People are angry about it. Some people think it's a great idea to raise awareness to fix the wage gap between men and women. But I think I'm the only person that has ever had this thought. I haven't seen this anywhere. If this cafe really wanted to battle the wage gap, why don't they just pay their female employees 18% more than most other cafes? Right? I mean, doesn't that make more sense? Doesn't that actually do something to fight the wage gap that you're talking about instead of charging men more? You can charge men $100 more. That still won't fix the wage gap, will it? What you really need to do is, oh, wait, sorry. Does this affect your money? Didn't think of that, did we? On to some uplifting news now. Earlier this week, Stonington Council announced plans to demolish a beloved local lawn bowls club and to build a stadium in its place. In response, the senior women's lawn bowls team released a Beyonce song parody to convince the council not to demolish their lawn bowls club. We're gonna play a clip now. Just have a look at what they made. That video got over 2 million views. Just about everyone in the country saw it. In fact, Stonington Council, upon seeing the video, announced plans that they will no longer be building a stadium. Instead, they immediately demolished the Lawn Bowls Club 6 months ahead of schedule and built a maximum security prison in its place. Then, they locked up every single old lady that made that fucking terrible video and sentenced them to death for crimes against humanity. Something I think we can all agree on. Now guys, I don't usually like to get serious on Bi-Monthly Bull. This is supposed to be a happy, fun show, but something has come to my attention that is absolutely horrible and we need to get serious about it. Jacob Sartorius is a YouTube sensation and a pop star. He's only 14 years old, but recently he embarked on an over 80-day world tour. Ladies and gentlemen, I've toured before. It is hard work between the traveling, the sound check, the performing, and meeting everyone after the show. That is far more than a full-time job. And he's been touring for the last 5 months now. The United Nations defines child labor as work for people under 15 that either deprives children of schooling or requires them to assume the dual burden of schooling and work. Clearly, sending a 14-year-old child on a multi-day world tour for more than 6 months with no school perfectly fits the United Nations criteria for defining child labor. Jacob Sartorius is being exploited and he needs to be saved. So, I teamed up with World Vision and we went to his concert in Melbourne to make this ad to try and save Jacob Sartorius from the horrors of child labor. Every day, Jacob Sartorius is forced to sing, blog, Snapchat, tweet, and post to feed his family. Every day, Jacob Sartorius is forced to travel thousands of miles to perform and appear at paid meet and greets. When does this little boy have time for his education? And do the people exploiting him even care that they are supporting child labor?
So I'm here with Tiz, he's at the Jacob Show. Just got a quick question for you. If you made a child work full-time in a factory with no breaks and no school, would you consider that child labor?
Definitely would be child labour, yes.
Okay, what if you changed the job from factory worker to being on a world tour?
Ooh, definitely child labour.
Yeah, but you still bought tickets?
We did.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. So it's only really child labour if they're like building iPhones.
Correct.
They don't even care. It's time for us to change that. Please share this video with the hashtag FreeJacob and consider donating to World Vision. Together, we can free Jacob from child labour and in the process, free the rest of the world from his terrible music. And in our final story tonight, local stand-up comedian Lewis Spears recently launched a crowdfund to create the biggest independent stand-up comedy special ever made in Australia, which is a feat that only he thinks is impressive. However, this isn't the first time that Lewis has tried to raise money for a cause. Earlier in the year, Lewis was an official ambassador for the charity called Live Below the Line. They specialize in providing education for impoverished communities. Now, here's the interesting part. For Lewis's special, which is not even halfway finished, he has raised $33,000, and that number is still climbing. You can still pledge. However, for Live Below the Line, he only managed to raise less than $200, which means his fans would much rather help a white comedian get on stage and tell dick jokes than they would help an impoverished community gain access to education. What a bunch of sociopaths. And that's all we have time for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me. As I said before, the crowdfund campaign for me to create the biggest independent stand-up special in Australia is still running. You can check out all of the information and the rewards here. If you like this video or anything else that I do, you're gonna like this even more. Subscribe, check out my podcast over there, and I will see you in 2 weeks.